Hello, everyone. How's it going? It's your host, Divonis, back here from being sick. And we're here with the Trip Sitting Podcast, here to inoculate you with some new knowledge. And today, I'm here to talk about foraging. What exactly is foraging and all the details, the nitty gritty? Let's just get right into it with our first point of the topic, which is what is foraging? And I'm going to do like a little basic definition of what foraging is and just like go into it after that. So what foraging is basically going out in the wild, right? The wilderness and finding your own mushrooms that you didn't cultivate yourself. Basically, the mushrooms that nature cultivated. And why do people even forage in the first place? Well, whenever societies first started, we needed to forage in order to find food, necessities, things of that nature. And as we've evolved, we haven't really had the need for that. So why do people even forage nowadays? Well, there's a plethora of reasons why people forage nowadays. The main reason is just to find mushrooms, you know? People still enjoy finding these mushrooms, and even though you can cultivate them yourselves, a lot of them you can't really cultivate or make in an artificial environment, so you still have to go out there and find them. And plus, the hobby's really fun. A lot of people enjoy it because you get you outside, active, involved with nature, things of that nature. So there's a plethora of reasons why people forage nowadays still, but the main reason is just to find those mushrooms that you want to be able to cultivate yourself and to just enjoy nature itself. So when is a good time to forage? Well, this is a very loaded question because it depends on your region and the time of the year, all that nature, all that good biz. So what I would say is a good time to forage for most parts of the world is during the fall, because that's when it gets a little bit cooler and that's when it gets a little bit more rainy, and mushrooms really love the rain. I know mushrooms love humidity, but if the temperature is around, like, let's say 75 to like, or maybe like around at the lowest 55, 60 degrees, 65 degrees, around that range, the mushrooms will still grow. It may take a little bit longer, but as long as it's raining enough, it's plentiful rain, mushrooms will grow. So I would say fall is usually around the best time. But it also depends on what species of mushrooms you're looking for. Because, the psilocybe cubensis mushrooms, those type of mushrooms, they grow year round. So it doesn't really matter what season. But other mushrooms like chanterelles or lobster mushrooms, you may only find them in like maybe fall, late spring season, just because that's how they grow. I actually don't know why mushrooms are seasonal. I really don't know why, but a lot of mushrooms are seasonal, so you'll only find them during those certain parts of the year. And like I said, they usually like rain, so if you're trying to go out and forage and it hasn't rained in a while, you might want to wait a few days because there are some mushrooms that can grow without the need of excess rain, but most of the time you won't be finding many mushrooms unless it rained a day or two beforehand. So yeah, what should one bring when foraging? Well, there's a few things you can bring when you're foraging. The main thing I would suggest bringing, no matter how skilled you are, no matter how experienced you are, is a field guide. And not just any field guide. I specifically recommend field guides of your general area, just because if you get like a generalized field guide, sure, you'll have more variety of mushrooms to look at, but most of the mushrooms that you'll be looking at won't even be native to your area, so you won't even like ever see them. So there's really no point of even having them in the first place. So yeah, that's my main reason for why I believe you should get a field guide that is specific to your area. Other than that, get maybe a woven basket or some type of mesh carrying case for the mushrooms. I think mesh would be the best just because whenever you have the mushrooms and you're walking around with them in the bag that's mesh, the spores are still falling as you're walking, so you're helping spread the spores around as you're walking, so you're not disrupting the ecosystem too much. So yeah, I would say field guide. Also, like I said, the mesh or woven basket. I would bring some water because foraging can take a little bit of time and it can get really dehydrating to just be walking around foraging for mushrooms. So I would suggest bringing some water as well, maybe a snack if you get hungry. I would also wear like pretty comfortable clothing, but not clothing as in like, I guess it just really depends also on the weather in your area, because I know I live in Texas and it gets kind of cold, but not nowhere near as cold as it does in other parts of America. So I could get away sometimes walking out with shorts and pants and shorts and a shirt and be fine with that. But I know people who like to forage in like the specific Northwest, areas like that, and it gets pretty cold and chilly out there. So I would suggest this looking at the area that you're in and seeing what appropriate attire I would wear. I wouldn't wear any open toe shoes just because most of the time when you're foraging for mushrooms, you're going to be in like forested areas or areas with really rough type of trails. So having open toe shoes isn't really the most comfortable or optimal choice for those type of environments. You don't need like mountain shoes or anything like that, but just something that can protect your feet from getting rocks inside of them or stepping on branches or things of that nature. And I would suggest bring a friend or two. Don't go alone. There's no point. I mean, you can go alone, and a lot of people do prefer to forage alone because they enjoy that solitary feeling of just them in nature. But I always find that foraging with friends is a lot more fun and engaging. Having multiple eyes is also really helpful because maybe you might miss a mushroom that someone else sees. So it's just beneficial to have someone with you. It's more of a benefit than it is a detriment. So how could you go wrong? And finally, a little bit of some extra tips about foraging. I would say one of my main tips about foraging is there is no point in picking up a mushroom that you're not 100% sure about. If you cannot guess the identification of a mushroom with 100% certainty, just don't even pick it. There's no point. You don't want to risk an ER visit or even death just because you picked a mushroom that was very similar to another mushroom that you thought you were picking. Like there are a bunch of mushrooms that have like they're edible variants, but then also they have a bunch of lookalikes that are poisonous. You don't want to fall into those traps. Also, I would say I would avoid any mushrooms that are just pure whites. Mushrooms that have white caps, white gills, white stem, because those 9 out of 10, those are like probably poisonous. And also, a lot of amanitas are poisonous. So, I mean, you can still like consume Amanita muscarius mushrooms of that, but you just have to prepare them a certain way. And if you don't know the proper preparation, they still have a toxin inside of them. So even though they're hallucinogenic, those toxins could do you in. And also, I'm not advocating for the picking or consumption of any illegal substances. Remember, I always say, look at your jurisdiction's laws before you do anything like that, because picking psilocybin mushrooms are illegal. Picking amanitas, I don't know if they're actually legal because I live in Texas and we don't get those, so there's really no laws against those. So look at your jurisdiction to see which mushrooms are legal, which mushrooms are not, before you pick them. And even if you do pick illegal mushrooms, don't get caught, my bro. Like, I'm not going to be a narc and be like, don't pick no mushrooms. I can't condone it. I'm not trying to get sued. Y'all understand what I mean. But yeah, my last tip would be just have fun. It might be a little bit frustrating because you might be looking for a certain particular species of mushrooms and you're just not finding it. And even though you may not be finding the mushroom you're looking for, there are like hundreds of mushrooms out there. So, and a bunch of them are edible in choice. And no matter what, you can find mushrooms that are viable that may not serve the purpose you're looking for, but they still will be valuable. So just go into foraging with an open mind. Remember that no matter what happens, just enjoy the nature that you're in, enjoy the peace, tranquility that you're getting from the nature, and just have fun. It's foraging, it's mushrooms, getting into nature. But yeah, that's basically the episode. Foraging isn't really too complex, too complicated. And of course, I could go into detail about the type of mushrooms to avoid the most or the type of mushroom that you might find on your trail, but that's so like subjective to your area that I would never be able to get to each and every single province's certain particular type of mushrooms to avoid just because there's just so many of them. There's like thousands of mushrooms, like literally. You could literally go forage right now in a forest and discover a new mushroom. And that's how little also we know about mushrooms. We know a lot, but we also don't know anything really. There are so many species we haven't discovered. So, go out there and forage. You might become the next big discoverer of mushroom species. Anyways, this has been Foraging with Divonis and Trip Sitting. I really hope you enjoyed this podcast. I'm so glad to be back and not sick anymore. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. If you have any suggestions, please let me know in the comments section below. Or if you want me to readdress this topic and go more into detail, please just send me a DM at trip.sitting or any of my other social media accounts, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys. Oh, hey, guys. This is post-production Divonis speaking, and I forgot one really big detail in what equipment you should bring whenever you're foraging, and that is getting a foraging knife. Now, there are methods to picking mushrooms without a knife, such as the twist and pull method. However, I personally enjoy keeping the little stem part of the mushroom left in the ground just so the mycelium can take it over and make new mushrooms, but that's not necessary because the mycelium is still underground, so it will still be able to produce mushrooms even if that tip isn't there. But yeah, it also makes a cleaner mushroom whenever you're putting it inside of your bag, so I just prefer the presentation of that over just the twist and pull method. What did I say? Yeah, twist and pull method. But yeah, it's not necessary, but it's definitely very helpful to get a foraging knife. That's the last thing I have to say. Now, goodbye, guys. Thank you.